Shaolin Monks. 2 words with a lot of weight. Most martial artists are familiar with the extraordinary powers of these spiritually disciplined Kung Fu practitioners. They train in the use of 36 weapons, and each monk picks 2 animal movements and styles to specialize in. Considering their training since childhood, the most commonly asked question they get is if they could beat a professional MMA fighter, and one man would rise to answer it, becoming one of the most dominant forces in MMA. Meet Yi Long, a talented kickboxer who would see a quick rise in popularity after claiming to be the #1 Shaolin Kung Fu monk in the sport of kickboxing. A claim that would mire his career in controversy and garner him great disdain from the very group he claimed to be a part of. The Shaolin monk fighter Yi Long has built quite a legacy for himself, showing time and time again that he was fearless and was willing to take on any opponent during his memorable fighting career. Before he was known as Yi Long, aka One Dragon, he was born with the name Lu Xingjun. He grew up in the Chinese province of Shandong, where his father imparted stories of Chinese martial arts and he decided he wanted to become a fighter. Lu began training at 14 years old and would be scouted by scouts from a local sports university to learn martial arts at the school. He would become proficient at various styles of striking, like Muay Thai and kickboxing, which made the scouts assess that he had the potential to become a skilled Sanda kickboxer. So they admitted him and put him through a rigorous training schedule, where his usual day consisted of 3 training sessions that lasted 2 hours each with rest in between. The rough routine would allow him to quickly develop effective techniques against his opponents in the ring. Years of hard work and dedication would lead him to winning the International Wing Chun Championship, which would ultimately motivate him to become a professional kickboxer. While he was preparing to become a pro, he would continue teaching himself Shaolin Wushu, which he would apply to his fighting techniques. Before making his debut, he thought of an idea that would set him apart from his contemporaries: a gimmick. Instead of wearing boxing trunks, he would wear a traditional Kung Fu outfit of yellow pants. He would then shave his head and don a Shaolin Monk persona. By the time he made his professional kickboxing debut in 2009, he was no longer Lu Xingjun. He was now Yi Long, the Shaolin Monk. The Chinese kickboxing promotion Wu Lin Fang would sign Long to a lucrative contract. This would also be the promotion that Yi would fight for most of his career in. In September of 2009, Long would get to cut his teeth in his first pro kickboxing match against Wang Xilang, a fighter who, like Yi Long, also had a gimmick. He would dress up as Li Kui, a fictitious character from Chinese folklore who carried around 2 axes. Wang Xilang wasn't necessarily the best kickboxer in the Chinese kickboxing promotion. He was arguably one of the worst, showing that he was all spectacle and no actual talent. So although he and Yi Long both sported gimmicks, it would be the latter who also possessed skill. As soon as the match began, onlookers could see that it was a one-sided affair. Wang Xilang would start the match by throwing a flurry of wild punches at Yi Long, but due to Yi Long's spectacular maneuverability, Wang Xilang wasn't able to connect a single blow. After Xilang falls to the canvas, Long clenches his head like the top of a pickle jar and begins pounding Xilang's core with powerful knee strikes followed by a throw to the mat. The fight was proven to be a sideshow, with Xilang showing that he didn't belong in the ring with an opponent of Long's skill level. For every failed kick or punch Long's opponent threw at him, he had an instant response. He would deal out powerful spinning back kicks with the occasional punch, and when it seemed like Yi Long was gonna get taken down by a throw, he'd quickly adjust and land on his feet. It was clear that he'd been spending years refining his skill set. According to Yi Long, his training allowed him to control his weight perfectly, which was made apparent by Xilang's failed attempts to grapple him. After realizing that he had the upper hand and that his opponent wasn't taking the match seriously, Yi Long matched his energy and would only deal out damage when Xilang threw a serious punch. Long will ultimately win the match by decision from the judges. While the match wasn't anything worth bragging about, it at least gave fans a taste of what the so-called monk had to offer. And within the first 2 years of his career fighting in China, Yi Long would go 13-0. He'd find himself dominating territories outside of his homeland, defeating fighters from Russia and Thailand. He became a big draw in the world of kickboxing with multiple videos going viral online. His fighting style would continue to evolve along with his gimmick. Instead of protecting himself from incoming punches and kicks, Long would often leave his guard down and rely on his inner powers to be able to sustain himself from damage. A showcase that would wow viewers, but would prove to be cocky, which didn't match with the humble philosophy practiced by Shaolin monks. Besides his defense changing, his offense would also see a drastic overhaul compared to his earlier matches. Although he specialized in kickboxing, he would stop doing as many kicks as he used to do and would mainly attack using Western-style boxing, making him very susceptible to attacks. Nonetheless, his new strategy proved to be effective as he climbed the ladder, but it would also come with ramifications when it came to points from judges. In 2011, Yi would fight city kickboxing fighter Brad Riddle, a fight that will become one of the most memorable in Long's career for one particular moment. He would put his hands down during the bout and let Riddle hit him with shots. He would absorb multiple shots before hitting Riddle with a barrage of strikes before the bell. It would become one of his most viral moments on the internet, making him look like an unstoppable force of nature. It would also be the most controversial moment in his career since he lost by decision, with the judges citing that the punches he absorbed during his fighting spirit moment were counted against him. Many fans felt Long was robbed of his victory, and history would repeat itself a few years later. In 2015, Yi Long would suffer yet another loss at the hands of legendary Muay Thai fighter Buakaw Bongchimek. The fight was held in Jiuan, China, and was called the Fight of the Century by the promoter. Although he ultimately lost the fight, Yi Long would have some of the best moments of his career during this bout. He would quickly take the fight to Buakaw by chopping away at the former K1 Max champion's legs with powerful kicks like an axe chopping through a tree stump. But the Thai warrior would later recover and begin to even the fight. Long hit Buakaw with big shots in the later rounds to get some of the momentum back. The fight ended with the two exchanging strikes and the crowd on their feet cheering both fighters on. But the judges would give the decision to Buakaw, which most of the Chinese crowd disputed. Since their first fight had a controversial ending, Weilin Fang was able to arrange a rematch the following year. The rematch was a much-anticipated bout for most of the Chinese faithful, as Long's career has been riddled with second bouts with familiar foes. This fight would be more one-sided than the first, as Buakaw controlled most of the fight. As the rematch began, the story hadn't changed from their first matchup. Buakaw was still faster, sharper, and more skillful. The Muay Thai legend expertly evaded Long's aggressive attacks and began to counter with beautiful strikes while displaying excellent defense. He made Yi Long overextend and leave an opening to pounce. Buakaw went to the body with a powerful left knee, a solid right middle kick, and multiple switch leg kicks to the body. He found Yi Long's chin with his front kick and more than a few well-timed counter left hooks and right hands. As the first round came to a close, there was no doubt that Buakaw was running away with the fight, an even more impressive performance than their first encounter. The rematch also seemed even more one-sided than the first fight. Long had a sense of urgency once the third round began, but that didn't help him solve the puzzle of the current Kunlun Fight Muay Thai champion. Buakaw won the fight on his consistent and damaging middle kicks, effective counter-striking, and supreme defense awareness and ability to minimize damage absorbed. However, the judges seemed to be watching a different fight. Yi Long spelled the unanimous decision victory on a night when a judge gave him every round, which resulted in Weilin Fang being bombarded with criticisms of the judges fixing the fight. This was a sentiment that was held by almost all kickboxing fans, who agreed that there was no way Long should have won. But whether you believe Yi Long deserved a victory or not, you couldn't deny that he was a force to be reckoned with. He picked up big wins and continued to grow his star power under the Weilin Fang banner. The promotion was fully invested into fighting Shaolin Monk product, with reports of a six-figure salary per fight. In a discussion about the difference between Muay Thai and Shaolin Kung Fu, Long is quoted saying that Shaolin Kung Fu and Muay Thai have things in common. Muay Thai is good at steel knees, iron elbows, and iron legs. Those who master Muay Thai have strong defenses. It's the same in Shaolin Kung Fu. In Shaolin, we have iron fist, iron legs, and iron cloth, which means the body is hard enough to defend any attack. Fans seem to admire Long's viewpoint on the two forms of martial arts, but there was one group who wasn't very high on the self-proclaimed Shaolin monk, the Shaolin monks themselves. In December of 2010, a spokesman of the Shaolin Temple claimed that Yi Long, who was billed as the #1 Shaolin Kung Fu monk, is neither a Kung Fu monk of Shaolin Temple, nor could he be named the #1 Shaolin Kung Fu monk at all. Shaolin monks are highly spiritually disciplined and well-trained with centuries of strict tradition behind them. They train boys as young as 8 or 9 years old, but Yi Long didn't start training until he was 14, and any Shaolin Kung Fu techniques that he may have done were self-taught. If Long was an actual Shaolin monk, he'd be going against everything they stood for. Shaolin monk's training style is totally different from that of an MMA fighter. Swords and other weapons are part of their training, whereas MMA fighters train for unarmed combat. It's also worth pointing out that they have other responsibilities other than training for fights. Their trainings are also of religious nature, and they focus on particular ideologies. There are different forms of Shaolin monks. It's not necessary that every monk should be a brilliant warrior. Some are simply monks following the life of a Buddhist monk, and that is the key. They give up their worldly life over religion and follow strict rules throughout their lives. They even dislike the idea of sports fighting as it violates the principle of martial ethics and code of conduct, which is the total opposite of Yi Long. At the end of the day, Long's core training was in Sanda kickboxing with whatever striking techniques he was taught at the sports university. But no matter what you think of him, Yi Long's fighting skills and monk persona have made him one of the all-time most popular Chinese kickboxers. Years from now, fight fans will still be watching his fights online. At the time of me making this video, he boasts an impressive record of 62 wins, 12 losses, and 1 draw. He'd go on to appear in big-budget films such as Captain America's Civil War. He will undoubtedly go down as one of the best kickboxers who made the internet believe that a Shaolin warrior could dominate the squared circle.